right, we've got a fantastic precocious guest who made me promise no softball questions as the only ground rule. For his first ever live stream, and I'm sure you won't believe it when you hear Ethan Steinberg of the Points Guy. Welcome.
Thank you, Stefan.
All right, it sounds like you are not alone. So are you going to introduce us to your companion?
Yes,
Maybe that's a softball, but it's inevitable.
No, it only takes a couple of minutes for me to bring the dog out. This is Watson. Come on, buddy. Watson was actually a signing bonus for my old job in Shanghai before I went full time with the Points Guy. Trying to get a good angle of him, buddy.
We've got it.
Okay.
And he's not just any corgi. He is a corgi that has been across the Pacific during the age of coronavirus. So talk about how we end up with you rescuing and taking him back to be reunited with yourself.
Yeah, so my plan was not to be here in the United States right now. I flew home at the beginning of March to see family and ended up getting stuck here when the borders closed. My girlfriend and I had been living in Shanghai for the last 2 years, but we were planning on moving back at the end of this month so that I could start grad school in the fall. And so that meant we were going to be flying back together with Watson, which was a little bit stressful for us. Neither one of us has ever flown with a dog, let alone flown 14 plus hours with a dog. But we had 2 business class awards booked on EVA, one stop Shanghai to Taipei to New York. We're going to rent a car and drive all the way down to Miami, where we're going to be living in the fall. And while it was a bit stressful, it was going to be a fun trip. Of course, that's all out the window entirely now. So once we realized that I wasn't going to be able to make it back, we started to get a little bit more nervous about Bonnie having to move all of our worldly possessions and the dog by herself. And with all of the flights getting canceled right now, it was getting harder and harder to find an airline that would take both her and the dog and not quarantine either one of them on a layover. So we started looking for options to ship him back. We found a couple of options that all fell through at exactly the last minute. The original plan was for him to go Shanghai to Guangzhou to San Francisco on a China Southern cargo flight. I would fly DC to San Francisco on Alaska, pick him back up and take him back. But that fell through at the last minute. We had another company that was going to do, I believe, direct to JFK or one stop into JFK, and I was going to go pick him up, but everything kept falling through. And at this point, I was starting to get really nervous. The regulations were getting stricter. There was actually a period where China banned the shipment of animals as cargo to the US. They didn't give an official reason for why they did this, but it happened on the same day that the US government started issuing sanctions over Hong Kong. So you can read between the lines. It was getting hotter in the summer months. And I know many airlines have heat restrictions where they won't take live animals above a certain temperature. And it felt like all of our options were going away. So we bit the bullet, and I made the single most expensive purchase of my life to get Watson on a Lufthansa cargo flight back to the US.
And you guys are back, but you're not reunited as a family. So talk about it. You've got one more coming.
Yeah, so
the whole gang.
People get really confused when they hear this, but Bonnie chose to finish out her school year teaching her kids and to stay in Shanghai until the end of July when we planned on leaving. I hate that I lost 6 months out of my 2 years in that amazing city. I would never want her to give that time up either. It sucks being apart, but we dated long distance all throughout college. I'm not saying we like it, but we know how to do it. And I'm so happy that she's off exploring. As we speak right now, she's waking up to a beautiful sunrise over the rice terraces in Guilin. And I'd love to be there with her, but I'm happy she's getting to experience this. Beats being home right now.
It's incredible. And talk about the trips. So she's in Guilin right now, famous scenery. What are the other trips in those 2 years that around China that you've been able to take?
So one of the tough things about traveling in China for us was that the only times she got off work were Chinese holidays. And traveling in China over a Chinese holiday is very, very difficult to do because you have hundreds of millions of people clogging up the trains and the planes trying to go home to see family. So our big China trip, we actually called it China Month, last July over the summer, we did like a 5-city trip all around the country. We saw cities, we saw nature. We started with, to date, the single most beautiful thing I've ever seen, the Rainbow Mountains in Jiangye in Gansu province in like the very far northwest of China. The pictures are absolutely stunning. One thing we didn't realize, we planned to get there nice and early to see them at sunrise. We didn't realize the rainbow really only lasts for a couple of minutes. There was maybe a 15-minute window where they were just shooting colors out. By the time the sun was fully up, they just looked like mountains. Beautiful rock formations, but the color was really only there for, for about 15 minutes, and we caught it perfectly. From there, it was off to Chengdu, a city we loved so much that our first night there, we honestly talked about moving, about ditching our life in Shanghai and trying to spend some real time there. We spent some time in Xi'an. We climbed Mount Huashan, one of the 5 ancient religious significant mountains in China. That was a bit of a funny story. So we decided there are 2 options. You can climb or you can take the cable car. We decided we wanted to climb because we're young, we're fit, it's a beautiful mountain. So we knew it was steep. We knew it was going to be really rough, but we did the 3-hour climb up. And we get to the top and we're completely gassed, but we're so proud of ourselves for having done this. Now, we booked like a little capsule hotel on the east peak of the mountain so we could watch the sunrise the next morning from the top. The path that you're climbing up takes you to the central peak.
Yes.
Which meant we had about 3.5 hours more of even harsher climbing up and down the peaks to get to where we were staying for the night. And we couldn't give up. We had to get to our hotel. We had no choice. It was absolutely brutal. I think my health app on my phone said we did something like 375 flights of stairs that day. But it was so worth it. It was, the views were incredible. It was just amazing.
You can see my smile. I think I've been there 5 times. I've always taken the cable car for the beginning because, as you said, that just gets you to the launch pad for all the other peaks. But my first time was with my now wife, girlfriend. We were students in college, and it was the first year that when the May 1st holiday for a few years was a week-long holiday, and then they pared it back, and we ran out of money. And we had to walk all the way down. And it's even harder in some ways down because the stairs are so narrow. That's part of what makes it hard is they're narrow and worn. So there was times I almost had to go a bit sideways just so I could get enough footing. And there I was absolutely amazed. Some of the young porters could run down the stairs 2 at a time. And ever since I've tried to go downstairs 2 at a time. It's incredibly hard, even for stairs, so it gave me incredible respect for them. That is my favorite of China's mountain sites. I'm glad you saw it. It's just an incredible one. And I'm glad you've gotten around China to a degree that a lot of expats just haven't. And you're one that, tell the story because you didn't have any particular, between you and Bonnie, no connection to China. It was just a corgi sealed the deal.
No, we like to joke that we didn't pick China, China picked us. But it really was one of the best accidents to ever happen. Senior year of college, I was doing some tutoring work for this company. I thought I was applying for a job tutoring a student at Northwestern. Turns out it was a student at Northwestern looking to poach tutors off of this platform to come work for his company in Shanghai. So senior year of college, I did some remote work for him. And one day I was on the phone with him telling him my plans for after graduation. Bonnie and I were going to take a year off. We were going to travel. And he says, no, if you're going to go travel, come live in China and come work for me instead. And then he offered us the corgi, and you're right. Corgi sealed the deal.
I'm amazed. China was part of my plan from learning in high school and went about it in such a deliberate way. And hearing that, that you happened into it and you had such a positive attitude because whether you love it or loathe the experience, it's intense, it's exhausting, it's not something that you can just be neutral on.
Oh yeah, we loved it. We absolutely loved the experience. We definitely had our fair share of low points. I will say that it helped a lot doing it with someone. I'm not sure if I tried to do this solo, if it would have worked out nearly as well. One of our lowest points actually came on our second day. So it's a bit of a funny story. We didn't sign a lease on an apartment until we got there. We were kind of worried about moving to China without a place to live. I booked us a cheap Marriott hotel in the city for a couple of nights while we figured it out. But my boss kept reassuring us, it's so easy to find an apartment. I'll take care of you. Don't worry. So the first day that we got there, he took us to this apartment leasing company called Lianja. And they showed us dozens of apartments in the exact block of the city we wanted. And we thought, wow, he wasn't kidding. He took such good care of us. He orchestrated this entire thing.
Mhm.
Lianja is this like chain real estate agency with more locations than Starbucks. He just walked into the store and handed us off to an agent. But the next day we went to Walmart to go, yeah, it was Walmart, to go, stock up on essentials for the apartment. We were new to China. We didn't have much local currency yet. We figured if any place in the city is going to take a Western credit card, it's going to be Walmart. We could not have been more mistaken. We get to the checkout line with, I think, 3 shopping carts full of everything, we would need to survive for the next year, and try and hand over a credit card, and they say no. I don't remember if it was me or Bonnie, but one of us broke down crying. I ended up calling my boss and begging for like an immediate advance on my salary to buy toilet paper. Thankfully, the guy was very nice and helped us out. But access to currency is one of the most confusing things about moving to China. And actually, going back to Huashan for a second, one of the examples I always love to give people about how advanced China's mobile payment system is when you're climbing up the side of a mountain. You don't need to dig into your wallet to buy a bottle of water. You just whip out your phone, scan a QR code, and keep walking. You don't even need to stop at the stand.
Yeah, it's the technology has moved so incredibly fast and so
actually,
easy.
A couple days after we moved to Shanghai, my boss and I took a road trip out to Lanzhou in the northwest of China to go meet with some prospective students. And while we were there, we took a little road trip around some of the prairies outside of the city. And we stopped at this fruit stand on the side of the road. Fruit stand is a little bit generous. It was just a guy with a pickup truck full of watermelons. This guy, we were probably 30 to 45 minutes from civilization in either direction, middle of nowhere. This guy will not accept cash for his watermelons. He just has a QR code taped to one of the watermelons. That's the only way you can pay. And that was this very like abrupt awakening of things are different here.
And I'd say that, and in a sense, that makes things harder for foreign travelers because it's not easy to get up on these apps. I have actual Chinese bank accounts, and it's not easy without the bank accounts and the local phone number. I mean, this year they launched the Alipay tour pass, but that's got all kinds of limits and problems. Yeah. So for a tourist to just show up and actually pay for things now, it's not a trivial matter.
If you are Chinese, or if you are living in China and have ties to the financial system, it is the most financially and technologically advanced country on the planet. If you walk in from the outside, it feels like you're stepping back 50 years in time, because even your cash won't be accepted many places, and that's really jarring.
Yeah, and I don't have a great solution for it. I mean, I lived there so many years, but the past year or two, when I've been traveling, is things like buying train tickets. I mean, in the past, they used to have, it was just a platform ticket. You pay 1 or 2 RMB and you could hop onto any train and upgrade your ticket there. And I tried to do it last minute, and they just closed the door. No, you have to buy a ticket half an hour in advance or 24 minutes. It's it does, but that's what an incredible experience and getting around the country. You also got around the region a lot, and a lot of the Asian carriers are amongst the most sought after for airline awards, premium cabin. You've tried a heck of a lot of them. So do your rough ranking and airline products, assuming things revert more or less to where they were of some of the ones that were. I mean, my feeling is if I'm going to pay the 2x or 3x of an economy ticket to get business or first class, it's got to be an experience that makes me feel like it's really worth it. A long enough flight where I'm laying down, or a particularly special meal or lounge experience.
Actually, while you mentioned that, one of my favorite flights was actually relatively short. I'm not going to spend too much time explaining why.
Let me guess. Is this Japan Airlines J class?
Nope. Singapore Suites, new suites, Singapore to Shanghai, 5-hour brunch flight. I told Bonnie we were skipping breakfast at the hotel and not eating until we got on board. No, I was very happy to pay the premium, even on a short daytime flight, because I knew there was no chance I was going to find suites award space on a long flight ever again in my life. I'm not going to waste too much time explaining why Singapore Suites is one of the best airlines in the world, but I will say a couple of quick things. The private room lounge in Singapore is a lounge inside a lounge inside a lounge. So you walk into the Silver Crisp business class lounge. From there, you walk inside to the first class lounge, which is available to Star Alliance first class passengers. From there, you're escorted inside the private room, where there's unlimited Dom Perignon champagne, beautiful plane spotting, made to order food. Very, very, very solid lounge. Singapore Suites is amazing. The new product is simply too much space, to the point that Bonnie was able to do yoga on board after a little bit too much champagne. No, that was an incredible flight, but Singapore Suites is an obvious one. One of my favorite airlines, which is unfortunately a lot harder to book on points and miles these days, is Korean Air. I got a chance to fly their 747-8 in first class from Atlanta to Seoul. So the 747 is the second largest plane in commercial service. A lot of airlines, the other airlines that operate it, stick 8, 10, or 12 seats in the nose for first class. Korean just put 6. So you have these massive suites hugging the walls. And if you think about the way the nose is curved, that means this back part of the cabin is just all of this open space. So when you're sitting in a 6-seat cabin in the front of the plane, in the very front of the plane, it really feels like you're flying private. And that's a really cool feeling when you know that in reality, you're on a 350-person seat jumbo jet. Speaking of 747s really quickly, the one most surprising airline for me of all my Asian airlines was Air China first class. Chinese airlines get an awful reputation, and I've done my fair share of piling on, especially when it comes to China Eastern, an abysmal business class product in just about every regard. But I flew Air China first class on the 747-8 from Beijing to New York last November. It wasn't Singapore Suites level good, but the seats were very good. The amenities, pajamas, all good. The food, very good, very edible. None of the glaring problems I've been led to expect. It was a very pleasant surprise.
And you mentioned Korean Air first. I've flown Korean Air business on that plane and others. And first is one that it looks almost imperceptible. And actually, the first time I saw it, I did a double take because something was different, but I couldn't tell. And then I realized it was like a slightly bigger monitor. But you think first is really that much of a differentiator over business for them?
So definitely when it comes to the food and service, in terms of the seat itself, it's not the inside of your suite where the difference is made. It's the outside. It's the entire ambiance of that 6-seat cabin. Yeah.
All right. And ZB is asking, is it true that Emirates has a lot of A380s, or rumor?
That is very true. Emirates does have the most A380s in the world. It's a good question, Zach.
I'm not sure if he meant availability or just that they have the planes. I didn't know that is there some backstory? I don't know. Is there?
Yeah, a little bit of backstory. Zach is an aspiring travel hacker of his own. He still has a little bit to learn, and he's had some trouble differentiating A380s and 747s in the past. So he needs to ask me to make sure he's looking at the right type of plane.
Well, the first time I flew an A380 was Korean, and I had no idea until I was checking in, and there was a giant display on the screen. Congratulations, you're flying the A380s.
Really?
I've never paid attention to what plane I'm on.
See, Korean Air is actually. Sorry, what?
You were very specific in your references that you're looking for it's not just that you're looking for Singapore Airlines, for instance. You're looking for a specific plane and a specific seat to
exactly,
because the experience can vary quite widely. Are there like Singapore, is there a plane that you generally want to avoid if you're really looking for that great experience?
Singapore, no. Singapore, you can't really go wrong with Singapore. Korean Air is a good example. I wouldn't say you'd want to avoid it, but the first class cabin on the A380 is a little bit larger. I believe it's an 8 or 12 seat cabin. I can't remember right now, but the seats are much more open. They don't have nearly as much privacy. Another good example would be ANA first class. On 95% of the routes, the 777s that ANA flies have this very boxy first class seat. If you're sitting in the window, you're going to have to lean like 9 inches forward to see out the window. If you're traveling with someone and sitting in the middle, you're not going to be able to talk to them during the flight without breaking your neck. It's a great product when it comes to the food and the service and the amenities, but the seat itself is not what you would expect. If you're flying ANA first class to New York, Frankfurt, or London, you'll be on a 777 with their brand new redesigned cabin, which is one of the sleekest in the world. They have like 46-inch TVs at each seat that take up the entire space at the front, it really changes the game.
That's another point you brought up about if you're flying, say, as a couple or a family, the consideration can be totally different with the variety of configurations. Now I'm thinking of something. Is it like Iberia? They call it the kissing seats, where
the honeymoon seats, yeah.
Depending which row you're in, you're either very in the middle, you're either very intimate with somebody, or you're very far apart. So
I've heard them called the honeymoon seats for the pair that's closer together, and the divorce seats for the ones that are a little further apart.
And so that's just the same plane, but it's just odd and even numbered rows, right?
Yeah. And I can't even begin to tell you the number of times where I've seen people board a business class cabin not really realizing that they've accidentally selected seats where they're not going to be sitting anywhere near the person they're traveling with, and how frustrating that can be. It was an Etihad flight, Abu Dhabi to Shanghai, business class on the 787 back at the beginning of 2019. I was completely deadbeat at the end of this vacation, just trying to go to sleep. And there was a couple next to me. He was sitting facing forward on the seat closer to the aisle. She was sitting rear facing in the seat closer to the window. So they couldn't see each other at all on the entire flight.
And we've heard so much about different service cuts. And with the Point Sky, you guys have access to industry people in that. Are things going to bounce back? These service cuts going to stick around, both the flight product as well as the lounge product?
So in terms of the flight product, you really have to take a look because there are two different approaches that airlines are taking. Some airlines like Emirates and Lufthansa are making really minor adjustments to their service. They're clearly more about safety. You're going to see more plastic wrapped silverware. You're going to see more stuff served on a single tray and fewer like passenger crew interactions. Some airlines like Turkish are gutting their entire product. Turkish used to be known for having pretty much the best business class catering of any airline in the world. Now, on most long-haul flights, you got a small packaged snack box. That cut to me says more about saving money than about protecting passengers. And those cuts are going to take longer to be undone because airlines are not going to be making money for quite some time.
And how about the lounge products? What are you seeing? I mean, even what people that aren't following, I mean, what's open? What are the experience you can expect now and what's coming in the next few months?
So a lot of the lounges that are more like wider access, think priority pass lounges or like United clubs or Admirals clubs, many of those have been closed or with severely reduced service. But a lot of the airlines that do invest in high-end lounges are actually easier to do with social distancing, with proper hygiene. If you think about a good first-class lounge, you're not going to have more than half the seats taken on any day. You can rearrange the furniture a little bit to space people out. And as long as staff are wearing gloves and masks, everyone's going to be happy. The bigger issue in my mind is lounges like the American Airlines flagship lounges, where you have these massive sweeping buffets, self-serve wine and champagne, where they're going to have to rethink the entire concept in order to be able to deliver anything close to what people are used to.
And do they even, I mean, if numbers stay low, I mean, it's hard to believe the business travelers will be coming back anytime soon. And that's what drives these. I mean, are the cuts just going to keep coming? Because how can you support any of this?
It's not just the business travelers, but it's the long haul international business class travelers. And that's the one area of the market that's seeing the least growth. Almost all of the rebound in passenger numbers is domestic. And so it's going to be a lot longer before lounges like that are geared towards international passengers reopen with anything close to the service you'd expect.
Because I don't know what last month was it, Southwest became the biggest airline in the world by passenger numbers.
Exactly. I saw Dallas Fort Worth as the biggest airport in the US for a while. I mean, for a while earlier this year, Anchorage was the world's busiest airport, a massive cargo hub, which really tells you about the sorry state we're in.
Wow. And I know I started deleting my airline apps from my phone last night. It was very sad. I left a few just for sentimental reasons, but I think you're focusing on hotels this year. Tell us about your strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see any long haul travel in my future for quite some time. I want to be optimistic, but I'd rather be realistic. And I don't think until we see a vaccine that Americans are going to be able to travel to most countries, or that we're going to see the level of service that we're used to. And so my focus for the rest of the year, and probably through most of next year as well, is going to be staycations, road trips, luxury Marriott hotels, hopefully on the beach, hopefully away from the city, where I can spread out with a drink, enjoy my free breakfast, enjoy a little bit of the type of travel that I'm normally used to, but without getting on a plane, without dealing with passport control without dealing with entry requirements in other countries. And the good news is I'm moving to Miami in a couple of weeks, and there are a lot of really nice Marriott properties in Miami, in the Keys, in South Florida in general, that are already high on my list for the year.
And why is Marriott your program of choice?
So Marriott, it all sort of started as an accident. Once you get on the loyalty hamster wheel, it's kind of hard to get off. I ended up during college having to travel pretty frequently to Houston to visit a sick family member. And so I was racking up, a dozen nights a month at a 4 Points by Sheraton in Houston. And so I decided to do a status challenge with SPG, which bumped me up to platinum status really quickly. I matched my SPG Platinum to Marriott Platinum and got United Silver status in the process, thanks to the Rewards Plus partnership that Marriott has with United. And then once the SPG Marriott merger closed, I ended up just sticking with it. Being a top tier elite member in Asia is amazing. The treatment is incredible. The suite upgrades are generous. The staff are lovely. And Marriott in the last year has made it much easier to qualify for platinum status. So platinum status normally requires 50 nights a year. It used to be that you could get 15 nights by holding any Marriott credit card, but you were capped at just 15. Earlier this year, having nothing to do with the pandemic, they changed it so that you could get 15 nights from any personal card and 15 nights from any business card. So you can now get 30 nights just from credit cards, meaning you only need to stay 20 nights in an actual hotel a year to get platinum status. And that's pretty easy. I mean, one long vacation in the summer or winter and a couple of short trips here and there. And most people who travel even semi-frequently should be able to hit that.
Don't you just end up with a lot of boring hotels?
It depends on where you stay. I'm lucky that I've been able to stay in some of the best properties Marriott has for work, for pleasure, for kind of both commingling. One of my favorite redemptions of the year, actually. So I have the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant card from Amex, which is Marriott's premium high-end card. And one of the best perks it offers is it gives you a free night certificate every year worth up to 50,000 points. Now, based on the Points Guy's valuation of Marriott points, 50,000 points is worth roughly $400. Back at the end of February,
which means it's actually worth about $215.
Well, okay, it could be worth $215. At the end of February, I used that free night at the St. Regis Langkawi in Malaysia for a room that would have cost $650.
Yeah. And Westin Tokyo is a 50,000. So there's certain reference points I have in my mind.
Exactly. So the Bonvoy Brilliant has a $450 annual fee. It comes with a $300 Marriott property credit. So in my mind, I think of it as paying $150 to get that 50,000 point free night certificate. So I paid $150 for a room that would have cost $650. I was then upgraded to a pool suite right on the beach, which had, so they don't tell you the square footage of the outdoor area, but it was a 1,800 square foot suite plus at least that much space outside, private pool, cabana, direct beach access. We got free breakfast every morning, and I have to say this was the single best hotel breakfast I've ever had. Bottomless self-serve champagne, DIY Bloody Mary bar, endless caviar, and of course, when you're in Malaysia, you want to eat local. So they had a made-to-order nasi lemak station, which I had both mornings we were there. You got your rice, you got your beef curry, you got your sautéed vegetables, as much of the spicy sambal chili paste as they would give me. And they had it all served on like this very traditional sort of woven bowl plate thing. So at the end of the day, in my mind, I'm paying $150 for an experience altogether. And you add the value of the room, the value of the upgrade, the value of the breakfast and the other perks, probably close to $1,000. That's a good deal for me.
I think the counterpoint of people that always say, well, that breakfast would cost $1.50 on the street market, but there's something to be said for walking down and starting your day in a beautiful setting and having the street market at night.
Yeah. When it comes to the nasi lemak, you're right, it would cost $1.50. When it comes to the caviar and champagne, it would have cost a little bit more.
Amy's actually honed in on one of the struggles I've had as I'm positioning towards U.S. travel. So she's currently in Des Moines, and like many of the markets around the U.S., she's finding the Marriott's overpriced based on the points rates and occupancy. She's currently at an IHG, so she's wondering about good hotel bonuses right now to snag.
Yeah, so I actually have a post coming out on this in the next couple of days. The one strategy I've been recommending to a lot of people right now is to open the Amex Hilton Surpass right now. That card comes with a 125,000 point bonus. This is really about a long-term play to get you ready to go once travel starts again. You open the Surpass now, you get that 125,000 point bonus. Maybe you use the card for some ongoing spending. It has bonus points at grocery stores and I believe at gas stations as well. Maybe you don't. Maybe you put in your sock drawer and forget about it for a year. In about a year, or whenever travel is safe again, you then open up the Hilton Aspire card, which is Hilton's premium card, also issued by Amex. When you open that card, you'll get a bonus of another 150,000 points and a weekend free night certificate. Now, most hotel credit cards offer some kind of free night certificate, but the really unique thing about Hilton's is it's not capped. It's not up to this many points or that many points. You can use it at the most expensive properties. You can use it at the Waldorf Astoria Maldives as long as you stay on the weekend. So with this two-card strategy, you'll end up, once travel is safe again, with about 300,000 Hilton points. The Aspire card also comes with top-tier Hilton Diamond status and a free weekend night that can be used at almost any Hilton property. So it's not much help right now, but if you're willing to spend this downtime to make long-term plans for next year, that's one of the best strategies I think you can go with if you're not currently loyal to a single hotel chain.
Or even, I mean, that one bonus. If there's got to be some, like maybe not the 5,000 point hotels in the U.S., but Hilton probably has some of the 10,000, and with fifth night free.
Not many, really, not many.
What's the bottom you're going to find in the U.S.? Is it what, 20?
Realistically, it's about 20. There are a handful of properties that slip below that. I don't know about Des Moines specifically, but especially if you live in a big city, really your bottom is 30, 35.
Yeah, well, the cities for sure it gets to the 30s. But you could stretch nights if you're finding the right spot. I mean,
absolutely.
To her question, I mean, I have, since so much of my travel is international, and I've not used my points at U.S. hotels because I always find them disappointing compared to the Asian ones at the same price. So are there, I mean, hotels vary so much, but of the 20, 30 brands, Marriott, Hilton, all of these have, are there any brands that you find consistently deliver quality value for points?
I wouldn't say consistently because there is huge variation within brands. One of my favorites by far is W Hotels. I love this. So, okay, I'm 24 and I look 24 and I act 24. Sometimes when my girlfriend and I, so you can't really see right now, I'm about 5'7". She's 4'11". So if I look 24 when I'm standing next to her, I look 21. When the two of us are checking into a Ritz-Carlton or St. Regis, sometimes we feel pretty out of place. So finding a hotel where we can be treated well and also feel like we're the target audience is really important. That's one of the reasons we like W Hotels so much. They're very luxurious, but in a young, active, and fun way.
And how about for hotels, for people that want to ensure that they have, I mean, suite doesn't really make sense these days because suite can just be like a 12-inch partition. But let's say we want to make sure we have a kitchen. So Residence Inn, Element. What are some of the brands? Like an Element, maybe people aren't familiar with all of these brands. Are there kitchen guaranteed brands that you enjoy?
Yeah, so we actually have on the Points Guide a guide to all of the different brands for each of the major hotel chains, guide to all the Marriott brands, to all the Hyatt brands, to all the Hilton brands. Marriott has 32 different brands, and I have to say, when I was writing that post, I realized that I've probably only stated about a third of them. There are, each of the major hotel chains does have designated brands that are all suite properties. So Spring Hill Suites, Homewood Suites. I'm blank on some of the others, but these are all suite properties where you're going to find more like a short-term apartment type setup where you have a kitchenette, you have a bedroom, you have enough space. The issue is the quality varies massively. Many of these brands are geared at longer stay, more budget-friendly travelers. And so some of them are newer and more modern and well kept up. Some of them are decades old. The companies that own them haven't put any money into renovating them. And so it really does vary property by property. You know you're going to get a suite. You know what basic amenities you're going to get, but the actual quality of the property beyond that varies.
Well, and I'd say the part, actually, sometimes I like the older ones in the sense that my definition of a suite involves an actual wall with an actual door, and the door has a handle, is made of a solid, non-translucent, non-transparent material. Not
So
this
you're not
like
staying at a W's.
well, this half partition. I mean, because my wife and I, we both are working. We both, any trip we're taking in the coming months is going to be together and a lot of time in the room. And when I mean, even luxury hotels like Fairmonts, they'll say it's a junior suite, it's a this suite, it's a that.
Yeah.
And nothing fits my definition of suite unless there's a proper solid wall and door separating, so one can be resting and one can be working if you want. And I just don't get that. I mean, I understand the cost savings, whatever the design trends, but it is maddening to me to pick out, are you actually a suite?
Yeah. While we're talking about suites, one thing that I just want to say, a lot of people who have hotel elite status, I hear complaining that, oh, I never get upgrades. Oh, I never get suite upgrades. And yeah, a lot of that depends on where you're traveling and what specific brands you're staying at. Like, you're not going to get upgraded to suites if you're only staying at Courtyards. There just aren't suites in the properties usually. But people like generally,
right? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, exactly. But people generally are not good at asking for suites. And I've found in my experience, I probably get proactively upgraded maybe 25% of the time. I end up staying in suites more often than not when I'm in a Marriott property, but more than 75% of the time, I have to ask for it myself, which means while I'm in the checkout line or the check-in line, I'm going to be pulling up the app on my phone, searching the hotel for the dates I'm staying, and seeing what rooms they have available. So if the check-in agent doesn't say, thank you for being a Titanium Elite, you've been upgraded to XYZ suite, I can ask. I can say, oh, I see you have this suite available. Is it possible to get that as an upgrade? I'm not asking for the penthouse suite. I'm usually asking for a junior suite or whatever one category above that is. But if you don't ask, that benefit is not always offered proactively.
I thought you were, instead of pulling up the app, you were pulling out the corgi.
Well, can't do one without doing the other.
Zach, again, our beginner aspiring travel hacker, he likes Holiday Inn, but he's saying, why Marriott when Hyatt is far superior in every aspect?
Couple of reasons. Marriott's footprint. So I was talking to a friend about this the other day, using Shanghai as an example. If you come to visit me in Shanghai and you want to stay at a luxury hotel, Hyatt has only two options, the Park Hyatt and the Grand Hyatt. They're located very close to each other in Pudong, in the financial district of the city. Not the best place to stay as a first-time tourist. If you want to stay at a Marriott hotel, you have two Ritz-Carltons, a St. Regis, a W, a JW, a Westin, and a couple of other lower category properties that are still worth considering. That's 6 to 2 options. And you see that same theme repeating itself in just about every big city. Like I was saying earlier, Marriott also makes it very easy to qualify for Platinum Elite status, even if you're only a semi-frequent traveler. Hyatt doesn't have any shortcut like that unless you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on your credit card. And so the ability for a average traveler who's only spending a couple nights a month in a hotel to get suite upgrades and free breakfast, Marriott makes that easier than anyone.
And you mentioned you've got the Brilliant card, which I mean, it just seems like the forgotten credit card of hotel loyalty programs. Does Marriott just not want anybody to know that card exists? It's only card. I mean, what they don't put out marketing really on it. It's always at the bottom of the page. They don't bump the bonus up. They push the lower annual fee cards quite a bit. And I mean, I've got a duplicate Marriott account for some complicated reasons, and I've never once in like 2 years gotten a marketing message about the Brilliant, even though that account is Platinum going on Titanium.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. We have seen elevated bonuses on the Brilliant a couple of times since it launched. I wouldn't necessarily say more or less than the other card, but I do agree with you that it's usually not in the marketing materials. I don't have any insider information on why that is, but if I had to take a guess, I would say that Marriott probably isn't making significantly more money off of the Brilliant. People are probably, so all of Marriott's credit cards, when I talk about Marriott credit cards, I kind of ignore the no annual fee Bonvoy Bold. It's a complete waste of a 524 slot with Chase, and I don't think anyone should ever get it under no circumstances ever. But all of Marriott's other credit cards, they have roughly the same bonus categories. 2 points per dollar on everyday spending, 6 points per dollar at Marriott hotels. Some of them have a 3 or 4x category kind of thrown in the middle, but you have a lot of similarities. And so I'm guessing that Marriott isn't getting incremental value out of the Bonvoy Brilliant. Sure, the annual fee is higher, but the perks they're giving out, from the $300 credit every year to the 50,000 point free night certificate to a higher level of elite status, you get gold instead of silver with the other cards. I'm guessing they're just not making significantly more money off that card. And so they're marketing the ones that do the best for them.
And there is something fundamentally different about how, say, Hilton prioritizes almost giving away status, a credit card that grants
Watering
top
down
tier
status?
Yeah. and Marriott is very much the reverse. I guess they have their cadre around the world of the blue Oxford shirt, khaki pant wearing American road warriors that always stay at Marriott's, and they don't worry about the so-called the higher end elites, but they focus in their marketing and their credit card on the more casual travelers.
Yeah, it is really tough. I said a minute ago that Marriott makes it easiest to earn top tier status. I completely dropped Hilton, which gives it away for free. And there's a reason that I dropped it. It's because Hilton's diamond status has become so watered down because anyone can get it through the Aspire card. You can hold Hilton top tier status and never actually stay in a Hilton hotel. And what that means is there are more diamonds out there. So when you want your suite upgrades, more suites are taken already. Marriott makes it easier to earn status, but you do still have to engage with the program.
And we'll take a pause on the hotel stuff. I think we've got a great. Nancy had a great comment. She said she always asks for the presidential suite every time.
I gets it too.
And people commenting about how young you are, and you've got this interest in financial independence movement, and the points crowd is getting interested in that, and the financial independence people are getting interested in points. But I think there's still a lot of misunderstandings or different impressions. I mean, I feel like financial independence means I'm supposed to give up travel and eat potato peels in a shed for the next 30 or 40 years, and it doesn't appeal to me, but I probably have it totally wrong.
So in the same way that travel hacking doesn't just mean one thing, it can mean first class flights and staying in the Maldives, or it can mean as many domestic flights and holiday inns to spend time with your family. It's what you want it to be. Financial independence is the same thing. No one says you have to quit your job. No one says you have to retire early. All the movement is about is making sure that at every stage of your life, you're more financially secure. Because when you're making decisions based on what makes you happy and what motivates you, and not based on needing to pay the bills, you're going to live a happier life. So the word early retirement is really crappy branding, if you ask me. Early retirement might mean getting rid of the parts of your job that you don't like. It might mean having negotiating power to talk to your boss and saying, I don't need this job anymore. So maybe we can find a way where I can keep working, but we can have more controlled hours, less meetings, dropping certain projects. Maybe it means dropping a job entirely, but continuing to work on a passion project, on things that motivate you without needing to have a salary attached. And I find that you have this huge overlap between the travel hacking and personal finance communities because at the core, they're really the same thing. They're groups of people who have realized that they can make their lives massively, exponentially better by optimizing a few small decisions here and there, by thinking outside of the box, by pushing the boundaries, and by doing things a little bit differently than mainstream common sense advice would say to do.
Yeah, I mean, when I meet people that have no concept of the travel stuff I'm doing, and I'm not wanting to proselytize, it's just if they're curious, I'll say it's like extreme couponing, except instead of a closet full of canned peas, we get in your case the W in the Maldives.
Exactly. I mean, maybe another way that I look at it is, right, I'm 24. I don't know if I'm going to want to retire early. I don't know if I'm going to hate my job and want to get out of it as soon as I can afford to, or if I'm going to ideally love it so much I want to work until I die. I don't know what my life is going to look like decades from now, but I can make decisions right now that will give me more options and more freedom. In the same way with points and miles, I never would have been able to go to the Maldives twice at this age if it wasn't for points and miles. They gave me freedom to do more with my life. Financial independence is the same thing, but obviously so much more powerful because it's not just limited to how you travel.
I mean, what 20-year-olds aren't vacationing for a romantic getaway at the W Maldives these days? Well, let's go to a very specific example. So you're a scientist by training, and you're about to apply and head off to medical school. And how are you thinking about the financial burden you're potentially taking, and what could people in medical school or residency do to improve their financial situation?
So I certainly didn't plan it this way, to take a couple years off and then apply to medical school. I didn't really know that's where I was heading until about a year ago. But the minute I did, I started saving every penny I could towards tuition, because it is just a lot of money. And
Mhm.
working at a relatively high paying job while living in China, where the cost of living is so low, allowed me to have a much higher savings rate than I would have been able to back in the US.
Mhm.
So to me, obviously physicians earn a lot of money, but that's not why I'm getting into this. I need to take this next step and get back into science and to medicine specifically. I hesitate to say it's a calling, because it sounds incredibly cliche, but that's the best way I could describe it. It's where I belong. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. And yes,
Mhm.
that's going to mean a lot of debt to get there. But there are steps you can take to make that more manageable. One very easy example is most people will graduate medical school with 6 figures of debt, and there are very few ways around that.
Mhm.
But after medical school, you're going to spend 4 to 7 years doing a residency and fellowship before you start making a real doctor-sized paycheck. In that time, you have two options. You can forget about your student loans, let them grow and compound and gain interest while you ignore them, or you can refinance them. Residents have access to much lower interest rates through resident refinance programs, which can essentially eliminate the added interest that you'd be paying each year. And when you're talking about a 6 figure balance to begin with, a little decision like that could be tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings for you. But you have to be active and involved and looking for these ways to optimize.
And it seems, I mean, I think of my brother, who's like you, a University of Chicago alum and MD, PhD, PharmD. I mean, just he's not the type to naturally gravitate toward, I'm going to spend this weekend, this week, this month, whatever it takes to figure that whole plan out. And yet you think of the impact you're talking about is just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, think about the feeling you had the first time you redeemed points and miles for an entirely free vacation. Think about that, rush, that euphoria. You felt on top of the world, like you were in charge of everything, like you could have anything you wanted. Now, multiply that by the financial freedom to potentially walk away from your job in 10 years and live the rest of your life never having to think about money again. It's this funny paradox where if you want to never think about money, you have to think about money a lot.
Yeah, the thought. I think I see my problem when the thought that came into my head was pushing a redemption for Northwest miles to from Shanghai to Turkmenistan, Ashgabat. Ticketing and the thrill of that as an early award. So I wish, I wish I could go back 20 years and have you teach me about personal finances.
I wish I could go back 20 years too. I mean, you don't know how
Okay.
hard it is to hear all of these amazing stories and feel like I got into the game too late.
That's why at conferences and events they say
Yeah.
relevant, relatable, and repeatable. It has to be stuff you can do in the future. But so what's the stuff that you're in on that you think in a year or two the people coming in are going to be telling you, oh, I can't believe I missed it. I mean, there's such disruption now. There's got to be opportunity, or maybe there isn't right now.
Yeah, I think one sort of seismic shift that's slowly but surely happening is the death of partner awards. So
Mm.
we've seen all three legacy carriers, United, Delta, and American, adopt some form of dynamic pricing. That's bad for two reasons. The immediate reason why that's bad is that if you're stuck traveling over holidays, or if you're looking for long haul premium cabin awards, your award prices have probably gone up by a lot lately. And that sucks. But there's a much deeper thing to be worried about, and that's the elimination of saver award space. So normally airlines break down their award space into, before dynamic pricing, airlines
Mhm.
broke down their award space into two groups: saver awards, which are the cheaper ones that everyone is looking for, and
Mhm.
advantage or standard awards that are the more expensive ones. This new sliding scale of dynamic pricing means that very few awards are actually being categorized in the saver class. The problem is, saver awards are what you need to book through a partner. So let's take an
Mhm.
example. Let's say I wanted to book a United Polaris award from Chicago to Amsterdam. But instead of booking it directly with United, I wanted to transfer Amex points to Aeroplan or to Avianca and book the same award for less. Those partners can only book that United award if there's saver award space. And we're now seeing so much less of that. And so slowly but surely, we're seeing a lot of these partner programs lose access to a lot of the inventory that made them so valuable in the first place. I think that's only going to continue to accelerate as more international carriers start to adopt dynamic pricing as well.
Yeah, I've seen that firsthand with Delta's my primary airline.
Exactly.
Since they consumed Northwest, and it's gotten to the point that I consider it only a point-to-point program. So effectively like a Southwestern. I mean, earlier this year, before the virus stuff, it had gotten to the point where it was not possible to ticket a very simple itinerary like Nairobi to Amsterdam to Seattle, or Nairobi to Paris to Seattle. And this is just single connection on a partner airline, or even picking up Delta Metal. And I was digging in and asking all the experts, and it was changes in the way that the fare classes have been sold, and Delta just hasn't, that Air France did, that they haven't bothered to reprogram it. I mean, it wasn't that it was a million miles like it used to be. It was just that it could not even be ticketed. Then the systems had just screwed up. And as you said, I mean, there's just, I guess the alliance rules are they're supposed to make these things work together, but there's no enforcement mechanism. So they just flaunt it and get away with whatever. Yeah, I mean, Delta's just become a short haul domestic program or occasional international
flash sales. If you can catch one of the flash sales, there's still good value to be had. But that's really all about flexibility. And the thing is, if you're looking to get an outsized value from your points and miles, you kind of usually need to plan ahead. You need to target specific sweet spots, specific carriers where you can get a better than average value. And those flash sales, while they feel good, they're usually still geared at locking you in to a pretty mediocre redemption value. Mm-hmm. They're cheaper than the like absurd price gouging you'd normally get, but they're still not a sweet spot. They're still not that amazing.
Yeah, and the only reason I keep it all with Delta, I mean, I'll cross 2 million miler even if I don't fly again this year, just based on credit card
MQMs.
Yeah, but I'm just a little bit short. But just because I have that status, platinum or diamond, that I can do free award redeposits, I can book and then keep rebooking as the prices fluctuate. Because otherwise, it's a dartboard, and it's frustrating, and it's prices start high like 12 months out, and then 6 months out they get a little cheaper, and then they're back up and down, and it's not just like cash ticket, and it does defeat the purpose. Well, Zach is saying your calling is not supposed to be in medicine; it's supposed to be at money orders at Walmart. So that's the dilemma I feel about points and stuff. Is like, do I really want to be
spending my entire life doing this?
Yeah, I mean, if we had kids, would I want to be telling my kids I spent my days shuttling to Walmarts? And which can make sense. It all depends how you balance your time.
And I'm not going to lie, that is a part of the reason that I'm going back to graduate school. And I'm not going to say leaving this behind. I'm still going to be travel hacking for myself, but leaving the professional side of it behind, is that I've started to think a lot about what is going to make me feel happy and purposeful, not just today, not just tomorrow, not just next year, but over the next couple of decades. Got a long road ahead of me, and I love travel hacking. I love what it's done for me, but I need to do a little bit more.
And productivity. I mean, you write for the Points Guy, which is a site that pumps out the posts, and it wasn't. I mean, I've got a separate RSS. There's two authors that I have separate RSS feeds for, and it didn't occur to me until I set it up for you of just how much you're writing each day. And so talk about that. I mean, I could almost feel like it'd be easier if you're writing for your own site, but this is a job for you. It's not like your passion dream building this thing. So how do you able to keep up that incredible productivity?
That's actually the key right there. So when I first started travel hacking in college, my friends all thought I was crazy, but then they all said, "Oh, you should start a blog." I said, "I really don't want to." I had no interest in building something from the ground up, in begging my friends and family to click on a link they didn't really care about, in trying to find that audience, and in doing all of the behind the scenes back end work that it takes to really get something off the ground. Working for the Points Guy has allowed me to write, for the most part, about stuff that interests me, and I already have an audience in front of me. And that's the only reason I'm doing this. I would not be blogging if I'd had to build it all myself. And I'm incredibly appreciative for that opportunity. I mean, the ability to share flight reviews and hotel reviews and help people make informed decisions about how to best use their miles. The ability to go attend some big events in the aviation industry. So I got asked to go review the Jewel in Singapore about a week after it opened because I was way closer to it than anyone in the New York office. Is a very quick. Actually, that's a lie. I was in Amsterdam at the time, but it was on the way home for me, more or less, on the way back to Shanghai. Things like that. So I got to spend, they put me up in a hotel there, and I got to spend 24 hours wandering around the Jewel, taking photos and enjoying and writing about it. When Beijing's new Daxing airport opened at the end of last year, I got to go up for a day and wander around this beautiful empty airport that's designed to handle 100 million passengers a year, but only had two 737s, and the rest of the gates were empty. It's so fun, and those are the kinds of things I would never get to do if I was doing this in any other capacity.
I'm someone I've not seen Daxing yet. Of
It's
course,
stunning.
the Beijing airports. I mean, when you're in, I mean, I understand the scale of it. The inside, I have been to the new terminal at Pudong. I mean, is it a bit of a feel like that, or is it just even
No,
on a grander, bigger scale?
the new terminal in Pudong feels like a slightly nicer version of Pudong. It doesn't really feel like a whole new thing. I've actually never
Mhm.
flown through Beijing capital, but Daxing is so visually stunning. The layout
Mm.
is beautiful. Everything is new and modern and clean, and just you have to check it out as soon as it's safe to do so. Like, I highly recommend.
Yeah, I mean,
And
Delta was going to be flying up there. I was all ready
everyone's
to
gonna be
check it
flying out
out.
there.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I mean, Beijing Capital, the T3, it's very, when you're flying in, it's very cool to see from the outside driving up there. It's very cool. When you're inside, somehow you end up on these choke points of these packed little trains in the middle that you're like, oh, this is not so much fun anymore.
So
uh,
yeah, Daxing was mostly well designed, with the only exception I could see getting crowded is you do take one train to get to security and customs. Much more of the airport is domestic than I had expected. So getting to the international part, you do have to take a train. I could see that getting crowded when you have multiple 777s and A380s departing around the same time.
hmm. And Nancy, I don't know if this is something you can ask, but are you leaving behind TPG and points when you go to med school, or are you going to try to juggle both?
So I am going to be stepping away at the end of August. I need to focus solely on studying for the MCAT, and I know myself too well. I can't do that if I'm trying to juggle both. Hopefully, once the test is behind me early next year, I'll come back and spend a little bit more time blogging before I finally start med school. But yeah, I'm going to be stepping away at the end of August.
So what's in your writing, Ken? You said you get to write about topics you like. What do you have upcoming that we can look forward to before your big bow out?
So in a couple of days, actually, we're going to be publishing my credit card journey. It's called One
Oh,
Card for Every Year I've Been Alive.
oh,
And it walks you through all of the early mistakes I made, like getting suckered into signing up for a city student card, to how I scaled up to 8 to 10 cards a year, some of the highs and lows along the way. And it's just a really nice reflection post as I'm getting close to the end of my time blogging.
you don't have gray hairs. Talk about that journey. So you're 19. You get your first card. It's not the 100,000 point bonus that you're getting quite soon after.
No, first card, I got suckered into getting the city student card with like a 2,500 point bonus. I ended up cashing it out for a $25 gift card a few months later. I assumed at age 19, having never held a credit card, that I wouldn't have a credit score and that my options were going to be limited. I knew a student card would be easy to get approved for. I knew it wasn't going to be the best for me rewards wise, but I figured this will be my way to start building credit. A couple months pass, and I get ready to go apply for the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which was going to be my first real big travel rewards card, my first big, 50,000 or 60,000 point bonus to really get me started. And before I do that, I go to check my credit score to see how much it's gone up. Here I am, 19 years old. I log into Credit Karma, and it shows that I have 25 years of credit history. I'm 19, 25 years of credit history. Turns out, before I left for college, my dad added me as an authorized user on his United Explorer card. I use the card very occasionally for like emergency expenses or whatever, but I didn't realize at the time that his entire credit history from that card transferred over to me. So here I am, a 19-year-old college sophomore with a 760 credit score, instant approval for the Sapphire Preferred, got approved for about 7 or 8 more cards in that year before I started to hit any roadblocks. It was one of the best advantages he could have possibly given me. I know a lot of
Hmm.
people are hesitant about this authorized user strategy, but the one thing I want to remind them, you don't have to give the person the card. My dad
Hmm.
could have added me as an authorized user, shredded the card, like a physical card, as soon as he got it, and I would have still gotten the credit benefits. So if you have a kid or a sibling or someone looking to build credit, you can help them without taking any real financial risk yourself. Add them as an authorized user and never give them the card. Done.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
It's every moment I just and this is a guy who says this is his first time doing a video stream talking on this subject. So I think he's either been practicing for a week or more likely he's this incredible natural. So
Or I just spend way too much time thinking about this stuff.
Let's close with a subject dear to my heart. A liberal arts education, is it pointless nowadays? University of Chicago, the core is one of the most intense and forces you into a very broad education that seems to be out of fashion in the US now.
Yeah, it is out of fashion. I think the core is this very idealized system where no matter what you're majoring in, you have to take a broad set of classes: humanities, sociology, art, science, math, and there's no way around them no matter what your major is. In reality, it's not perfect. Some classes are better than others. It's kind of funny. As a science major, the humanities classes that I had to take were all a little bit more rigorous. The humanities majors, their core science classes are these blow-off natural hazards. There's like a deserts class that people take. And so they really got to slide through it a little bit more easily. I think people go into college with no real understanding of why they're going to college and how can you expect them to at that age. I had a pretty good idea that I was going to be studying science, and I knew what that meant for myself. I didn't expect that I was going to spend a couple of months doing college admissions tutoring in Shanghai or 2 years writing for a travel blog. That was never part of the plan, and that was definitely not part of my college education. So it is important to supplement anything you learn in school with real life skills that you might have to seek out yourself. No one taught me travel hacking. I found it all myself. I sought out people who were smarter than me, who were willing to take some time to teach me, and I tried my best to pay it forward whenever I could. I was in the biology honors program at the University of Chicago, and of the 23 kids in our cohort, 16 of them, give or take, are in Ivy League PhD programs right now. 4 of them are in top 10 med schools. 2 of them are in MD PhD programs, and there's that one kid writing for a travel blog.
but they've given you all their social security numbers, and you've got all their Bluebird cards loading up for them at Walmart.
I was always too scared to carry cash equivalents in that part of Chicago, so the post office on our campus was about the farthest I felt comfortable walking with any cash equivalents. So the day the post offices got hard coded to stop accepting Visa gift cards was the day that kind of died for me.
Well,
Walmart was just a few blocks too far.
I think this is going to be like a rubber band snapping, that you're talking up all your classmates so highly, but in a few years you're going to be zipping beyond them all, doing incredible stuff, saving lives, who knows what, and probably multiple things. So wonderful chatting with you. Thank you for joining us tonight, Ethan.
Thanks, Stefan.